Nadine would always tell me, Arceli, why are you very daring? And here's one, I'm glad Nadine is here, Dr. Collins. I think you were the first one who did phenomenology at IAS. And she was greatly challenged by our dean. And that's why, if you read her paper, I think it's available online at the IAS database, you will find out that her chapter 3 is very, very long. Because we required her to really put there all the necessary elements of philosophical discussion. Alright? So, we should approach this one with caution. The one that we are going to analyze, the framework that we are going to study this morning is transcendental. At first, we agreed in the acrometic that we present both transcendental and hermeneutic. I found out it will be too much for the chewing. No, we cannot attempt to understand two frameworks in 40 minutes. So we will limit ourselves now to transcendental phenomenology. Let us begin with the question, what is phenomenology? Okay? And the idea started with Kant and then with Hegel, and they say phenomenology referred to knowledge as it appears to consciousness. It is the science of describing what one perceives, senses, and knows in one's immediate awareness and experience. I highlighted there the word appears. Appears. So in phenomenology, anything that appears to us, that appears to our consciousness. Now, consciousness is a repetitive word in phenomenology. What is consciousness? Or conscious or lived experience. What is that? It means that it is an experience that you are aware of. Do we undergo experiences that we are not aware of? Yeah. We experience something and we are not really aware of it. Or we experience something because that kind of phenomenon has been there as long as we have lived. But sometimes that phenomenon presents itself to us in such a force at a given moment that then we realize, oh, I'm experiencing this. I'll give you an example. The other night, we had a presidential reception. Who of you were there? Okay. You remember that Betty Gabashiani sang a song? While she was singing, the husband was across the table from where I was. And he said, she is singing to me. The song was a love song. And it's about do not eat, something like, do not eat when you're alone, we should eat together. It's a love song. And when Betty went down, the husband, and she sat down, the husband put his arms around her shoulders, pulled her close, and gave her a kiss here. And I was a close-up witness to that. And as if for the first time, in which everything is perceived freshly as if for the first time. As if for the first time, I had an understanding of what love was. As if for the first time. Do you think I had not seen love? Of course. I had seen that love around me for a long time. But that was a special moment, an aha moment for me. And I said, aha, so this is what love is. And that kind kind of feeling evoked in my heart was so powerful. It's like I was hit with thunderbolt and said, Arceli, this is what love looks like. And I realized that it was so beautiful, Patricia. It was so beautiful. And so I said, wow, because I had been reading this one. I was asking myself, what is that? What is that? How do you look at something as if for the first time? And you know, I'm very thankful because the following day, yesterday, I would speak about it, and God gave me that kind of experience. And I remembered that I had many like experience like that. For example, there was one Sabbath morning, Mr. Rosario came out of our room. And I looked at him and I said, wow, he's so handsome. Do you think that was my first time to see him? Of course, no. But that kind of understanding, that kind of perception struck me so powerfully. It was as if it was the first time. So this is what Husserl, because he was the father, although he did not use the term transcendental, but he was the one who said, you have to, it's a phenomenon. It's an experience with something that strikes you so powerfully. I would like to ask you, how many of you are teachers? Majority, I think. In the classroom, let's focus in the classroom. Do you have a transcendental experience? I mean, when I say transcendental here, I am referring to this definition. Like you see something as if you are seeing it for the first time? Okay. Who can volunteer and share? What is that experience? That it strikes you so powerfully. Anyone, please. Grace, can you remember? Do you have? Do you have something in mind?
None so far.
Okay. Dawn, do you have something in mind? Yes, great.
I'm teaching organization and management for at least four years already. 4 years already. But this semester, my father-in-law died, and I witnessed him pass away. So after his passing, I came back to class, and I was still lecturing on organization and management, but my tears were falling down. Like it was my first time to lecture, but I was telling the class that it's like this, and then my tears were falling down. Like it's my first time to lecture on that, and then one of my students would be coming and giving the tissue, but however, my lecture was also connected. That's why I connected it. My experience, I connected my experience to the topic, and then tears were falling down. So it was like my first time to discuss that topic, as if it was the first time, although I've been teaching it for 3-4 years already.
So you see, how do you call that? You find a name for that experience, and that can be a phenomenon that you can study using transcendental phenomenology. I'll give you an example. I have experienced, you know when I teach, I usually ask questions. And my teacher, when I was practice teaching, she would say, do the sweeping glance. So I throw the question, and then I start from here. And then I scan the room. I have seen many times students that begin with, I have seen that. Just like there's a light bulb, being switched on inside the head. I call this the experience of the aha moment. And I want to write about that. And I want to title the study as The Phenomenology of the Aha Moment in the classroom. Have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, like everybody was saying like that, and then so suddenly the eyes sparkle. I want to watch that. I always want to watch that. And I have never been failed by my students. In maybe a class of 30, usually there's one whom you see that. I watch that because as a teacher, I always tell myself, I will always look for that someone with a sparkle in the eye. And that's the one I will call. You know, if as a teacher you have not seen that, it may be because you do not wait long enough to see that. You understand what I mean? You throw the question and you ask immediately. You wait. And then it may be because you do not look for that sparkle. Why? Because you intentionally look for those who are looking down and then you call them. Yeah? That's what you are looking for. So if you do not see the aha moments, it's because you're not looking for it. You were looking for those who were looking down. They were looking down because they were telling you, Ma'am, sir, please don't call me. But you were looking for this kind of people. So, this is a common, a universal experience for all teachers to see the sparkle in the students' eyes. All right? So that's a phenomenon. You try that and you will see it as if you're seeing it for the first time. So according to Husserl, a phenomenon is anything that appears before us. So it's a different concept from other research studies where you focus on a problem. And our concept of a problem, especially in the Philippines, is really a problem. Like poverty, drugs, crime, violence. So we focus our eyes on these types of problem. And so when you switch to phenomenology, it's very difficult to look for a topic in phenomenology. Why? Because our eyes as researchers have been trained to look for a problem. But for Husserl, a subject of study is anything, a phenomenon is anything that appears to us. So, my experience with Dr. and Mrs. Gabasiani, I want to call it forever in love. I will still search the literature because I'm saying forever friends, BFF, best friends forever. Then, how do you call that among couples? So now I have a temporary term, forever in love. So I'll see if there's literature about that, if there's a term about that. If not, I'll come up with my own term. I'll write about that. That's an experience. It's a beautiful experience. What is it a subject worth knowing, worth researching, worth sharing? Yeah. Now when couples, separate after 1 year, 2 years, this is an experience that is worth writing about. Okay, let's continue. So what is again a phenomenon? It is something that appears. Somewhere here, we have like appearance as we see them, as they appear to us. Right? Now, what are the core features of transcendental phenomenology? There is an emphasis on the phenomenon to be explored. And again, what is that phenomenon? It's not necessarily a problem. It can be a problem, yes. But it may not really be a problem. According to Dr. Leroy, we can look at the good, no? At the good. One approach Solomon did was to enjoy life and to look into the good of life. Right? Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Because here in the Philippines, we've been so swamped with so many problems. So as researchers, we felt it's always our duty, our only duty, to solve all the problems in this world, in the Philippines. No, let's celebrate also, okay? Next. We have also an exploration. When we explore this phenomenon, we look at how a heterogeneous group of individuals experience the phenomenon. So for example, the aha moment in the classroom, you can have a male teacher, a female teacher, a young teacher, an experienced teacher, teacher in the urban, teacher in the rural, maybe a foreign teacher, maybe a local teacher, all right? And then we have a philosophical discussion. Do not ever write a phenomenological paper without a philosophical discussion in your methodology. There must be a mention. Familiarize yourselves with the terms in phenomenological and transcendental phenomenology. Among these, include in your discussion about epoche or bracketing. You should have a discussion on intentionality, on intuition, on noema, noesis. You have to be familiar with these terms. You have to have a discussion of this. What is texture? What is structure? Right? And then we have here bracketing or epoche. What do you mean by bracketing? Always there are two schools of thought. One school says it's impossible to bracket. Another school of thought says it is possible to bracket. Now, which school do you belong? Who says it is impossible to bracket? Okay. Who says it is possible to bracket? Okay, we are not quite sure about that, right? Yeah, it's difficult to make a decision yet. But this discussion is ongoing. Husserl says it is possible to bracket, but he says while it is possible, it is not easy. That's why what Husserl proposes is not bracketing forever. He just says temporary suspension. Temporary suspension. You will say, for now, this is what I will bracket myself for now. For now. Now, why is bracketing important? What is again bracketing? You suspend your preconceived judgment. Suspend it temporarily. Yeah? Suspend it temporarily. Okay, I'll give you our experience about bracketing and how dangerous it is as a researcher if you do not bracket. We were doing a teen motherhood study. These were teens who had a child outside of wedlock. Now we understand that is not quite a problem for some, but you see, I am more than 50 years old. I come from a generation where before, if you were impregnated, it's like it's a big curse in the family and community, right? You understand where I am coming from. And also you understand that I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. One of our participants was a Seventh-day Adventist studying in an Adventist school. The partner also was Adventist studying in an Adventist school. Before we left for data gathering, our team were excited. We were excited. We said, oh, she must be very remorseful. So, we went there. I was the lead investigator. I said, when you learned that you were pregnant, what did you feel? You know, we already had an answer, right? You know our answer, right?
Remorse.
Our participant said, happy. Now, our preconceived ideas and the answer did not match. You could imagine our eyes really big. No, it's like, so I followed up. I said, how about your partner? Happy also, ma'am. So two now, not matching. So I extended, and I said, now this one, I will get a correct answer. So I said, how about your parents? I said, they're also happy with me. And so, it was very difficult now because our preconceived ideas here were very strong. We were 101% sure of the answer. Before we conducted the interview, we had an answer. And now the answer was not matching. I said something, I did something, which I consider was a big crime to a researcher. In the Adventist Church, once you get impregnated out of wedlock, you are disciplined by the church. I explored into that. That was not part of the research question. That was not. I said, didn't the church pastor come? Didn't the church elder come? And I saw the change in the face of my participant. And I realized my mistake. When I realized that, it's like, what have I done? But I calmly said, oh, thank you so much. We will come back tomorrow. The others, I had two of my colleagues with me. Before I stopped the conversation, they also threw in questions with that similar kind of thought. And I stopped. So while we were walking, Mom, why did you stop that? We were excited for the answer. I was just walking. When we got back to the apartment where we were staying, I said, let's have debriefing session. And we had debriefing. And we realized what a big mistake we did. So we came back and apologized. And then we continued the conversation. Now, I have a story to tell what bracketing is. I thank God for the experience. It was a big slap for me because all that time prior to that, I had been lecturing what bracketing is. Can you imagine that? But until I was confronted with what bracketing really is, then that's the only time I realized what bracketing is. You understand now why it's very important to bracket? It's not just adding to what your participant is saying. It's not only that. It is even putting them in a situation that becomes very uncomfortable for them and also for you. So according to Husserl, it's possible to bracket, although it takes training, high awareness, exposure, and also collaboration with colleagues. Because if one of you does not recognize that, hopefully the others in the team will recognize that at this point, you have not bracketed as you should. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there are many ways to bracket. One is you discuss among yourselves as team of researchers. Another is you write down. You write down your experience with the phenomenon. You can do this under reflexivity statement. Yesterday, if you were here, I read to you our reflexivity statement of that study, Teen Motherhood. Actually, before Dr. Safari asked me to write, to include a reflexivity statement, I already had it because of that experience. Alright? So the next one here is data collection. Usually we say, for transcendental phenomenology, we have interview. Yes, that's the main source of data. But you can also have poems, you can have observations, you can also have documents. You can have the journals of your participants as they went through the experience. Okay? I would say, in my experience about Forever in Love, that phenomenon came to me so powerfully as if I saw it for the first time. So I decided I must study that. Now, what is my task as a researcher? What will I do? I will encourage in my participants that kind of a new lens that they will see the experience as if they are experiencing it for the first time. That they should have, as they experience that, they should have a conscious, they should have the consciousness of the experience. So for example, I was looking at them, So I felt the tightness of the grasp. I felt the tightness. And then that kiss there, I was only a witness. But I felt the wetness of the lips. As the lips touched this one. Yeah. I was looking at that. Wow, I said, so beautiful. And then Mrs. Gabashani smiled. It's like, Nadine, you told me about that. Like, her mother would giggle like a teenager. She smiled, but it was so sweet. I was looking at them. I was not looking at them like they were 40s, 50s, 60s. As if they were teenagers who were in love for the first time. Yeah. So, why is that very important? When you interview your participants, you let them revisit that experience. You let them relive that experience. I think that's the meaning of lived experience. You relive it. Our dean does not like the term lived experience. He would always tell me, by the way, our dean is a qualitative researcher. He's into it. But he would tease me like, Arceli, why? Is there a dead experience? I think it's a lived experience because you live it again. Of course, because when you, for example, I'm imagining when I interview my participants for this in Forever in Love, they will not be doing some loving in front of me. No. But my participants will relive it. As they tell that experience to me, as if they are experiencing that experience at the moment. They will capture, the tightness of the grasp. They will experience, they will tell me about the wetness of the lips that touch the cheek. Right? And they will tell me about that warmth as their hands clasp together. Okay? You can relate. Yeah. Why am I asking that? Because as a researcher, you also should have an understanding of that experience. How is that relating to you? Okay? How is that relating to you? Okay, so we have there the data collection. Now we go to the data analysis. And the last here is that instead of conclusion, we use the word essence. Essence is the term. So I encourage you, do not be, what is this one? Hesitant about using the word essence instead of conclusion. Now, these are examples of a phenomena. Maybe because you will say, so what's my phenomenon? Oh Lord, help me to open my eyes that I will see things before me fresh new ways. But just in case, just for you to get an idea, these are doctoral dissertations. Men and menstruation. I don't know about that. You know about that? Insomnia is common, but now we are revisiting it as if we are looking at it for the first time. And then being anxious. What is presence, the experience of presence. In fact, mentioned about a phenomenon can be like driving a car, riding a bicycle, and you will say, oh, this is very common. But I read the excerpt of that study on driving a car, and the participant was relating his first experience with driving a car, and he was saying like, the car was so big, so much an extension of me, and it's like the car was occupying the whole road, and there is so much to learn from that. And so anybody who will, I was reading that, I was saying like, I was reading that, I said, so this is the experience. And I said, maybe I can manage that. I can handle that. And maybe eventually, I can learn how to drive a car. So isn't that worth, that study worth? If I'm the only one benefited by that study driving a car, that is worth it. You can imagine the freedom that I will explore if I learn how to drive a car. Right? You say right. Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Because then, driving a car, I was reading only that portion, but I believe other things will emerge there, like freedom, liberation, I don't know, maybe some more like exploring, right? When you learn, but you begin with driving a car. But you see, phenomenology is very deep. All right, let's continue. So what is a phenomena in phenomenology? We say it is anything that is appearing, that is manifesting. It's like a mouthful there. All forms appearing, showing, manifesting, making, evidencing, bearing witness, to taking, but anyone ing. But the most important here are the words appearing. Anything that appears to us, anything that manifests to us so powerfully as if this phenomenon appears to us or manifests to us for the first time. Now, I like to highlight here this phrase, what it is like. The goal of phenomenology is to help us understand what it is like. What is it like to drive a car for the first time? What is it like to ride a bike for the first time? What is it like to undergo depression? What it is like to have that deep longing? What is it like to be a slow learner? Have you ever wondered what it is like to be a slow learner? Any one of you here who is a slow learner? Only one, two, see? But don't you think that will be a big contribution in education if one of us will explore what it is like to be a slow learner? Yes. I was a slow learner, still am a slow learner, and I feel lost so many times. It takes me a long time to have an aha moment. It's like there's a joke, everybody has finished laughing, and then this time I laugh. Yeah, but that is a good study for education because we understand what it is like to be. And we have to understand what it is like to be as we are, as we find ourselves being in relation with others. So when you study a phenomenon, you study the phenomenon in relation to the environment. That's why you have to write the context. What did I say? What's that word last I said? Context. Do you understand what is context? Context is setting. Because you cannot detach anything that is happening from its context. Now, we are going to, let me go to this one. So when you interview, let me warn you, your data analysis is, to me, there is something that is very important before data analysis, and that is your data gathering. The quality of your data depends on how you gather your data. There can be two researchers. One may get as an anemic data. Have you seen an anemic data? Yes. A data where there are no stories. That's why, you know, it's always good to have face-to-face interview. While we accept now interview over Skype, interview over cell phone, but I would encourage you, if you can, fly the many miles to meet your participant in flesh and blood and touch. Yes, it's different. The kind of data you get is different. You can imagine Dr. Collins, when she gathered her data, she met her participants from different parts of the world. She flew to these places to meet them. Why? Because that is important. There is something. As we look into each other's eyes, there is magic there. There is data, in looking at each other's eyes. Do you agree with what I'm saying? It seems that you are not very agreeable. I mean, you don't really believe in what I'm saying. Okay, now there are two important questions that you have to ask. One is, what have you experienced in terms of the phenomenon? Being forever in love. I will ask Dr. Sumindap. So Dr. Sumindap, tell me your experience about being forever in love. That's the question. And then the other one is, what contexts or situations have typically influenced your experiences of the phenomenon? That is the how or the context. Like, what precipitated, for example, I had a brief conversation with Mrs. Gabasiani. I said, I noticed this one. And she said, yes, because he fell in love. The first time he met me I was singing. Can you imagine that? Yeah, then you will say, so that's the context. Why was, Dr. Gabasiani, as Betty was saying, was... because he was reliving that moment in the past. That's the context. What context means, what condition, what situation precipitated that experience. It's like 20 maybe or more so. He was reliving that moment. See, that's the context. Some of us, we do phenomenology. We say, what are your challenges? And we think that's already phenomenology. What are your challenges as a teacher? I don't have instructional materials. I don't have enough. Salary is low. And, lack of support here and there. Thank you. That we call the study phenomenology. No, you should have these two. And these two should be very much intertwined. In fact, now I am thinking that the best way to do a phenomenological study, here you will see two questions. So you do not present this as number one, what is the what of the experience? You present that one, the what of the research question number two, the how of the experience. I'm thinking, I would like to propose, let's do something revolutionary. That is, for example, the experience, that aha moment. Let's go back to that example, the aha moment. What it is like to have that aha moment. And you will say, Mom, it's like there was darkness and all of a sudden there was this light. I understand for the first time. It was so joyful, exhilarating. That's what you participate. So you say exhilarating feeling. Immediately you discuss what has precipitated that exhilarating feeling. That is now the how. So do not wait until research question 2 because you do not know. Now your context here may be talking which theme is that. Do you follow? It should be connected. This theme came out. This is the what of the experience. Immediately discuss the how of that specific experience. Because in that research question, you may have several themes, right, coming out. They may have different expressions, experiences. So you have research question number 2. Now you are lost. This kind of context, where is this? Which theme is this one?
So when the excitement is still there,
you discuss that. But I would like to highlight here, these are the steps, the data analysis framework of transcendental phenomenology. May I encourage you? We have received several studies that say this is a transcendental phenomenology. For the data analysis, we will use thematic analysis by Braun and Clark. my heart bleeds when I receive this kind of studies. When you are using transcendental phenomenology, you follow Mustakas. Mustakas has already provided. Unless you have really a very strong reason why you are doing transcendental, and then you will do maybe the axial, bones. Dr. Swansea mentioned about that yesterday, about grounded theory. Now, you are doing transcendental method, phenomenology, but you will do the steps of grounded theory. Unless you have really a very strong reason for that, then do that. But by all means, I encourage you, follow the framework. Do you follow, please? All right, so now you have horizontalizing. That's not very difficult. You highlight here the significant statements. And then clustering, that's when you group into larger units, and then you refine your things. What is very important here? The way we present transcendental phenomenology is different from the others. Number one here is that you do, not number one really, number three, you do textural description. What is textural description? The texture of the experience. What is the texture of the experience? The tightness, the wetness, the warmth, the grip. You understand that? That this is the texture. The details of the experience in its varying intensities and varieties. So when you look at this aha moment, maybe you will look at this in a math class. You will look at this in a chemistry class. You will look at this in a physics class, in an English class, in a physical education class. And you look at this, maybe you want to look at, because it should be a heterogeneous group. You will look at this among girls. How do they experience the aha moment? High school and college. And the idea is that you should explore the color, the texture of the experience. Follow? And then after that, you do the structural description. The assumption is, whatever the experience is, there is a structure to every experience. What is structure? What is a simpler term for structure? Form. There is a form to the experience. And this is the one that we will capture. Why do we need to capture that form? Because this is there is a sense of unity. This may be my experience with being in love, but we will discover that the love between the old and the young, they are the same. They are the same. That kind of fluttering butterflies, you know, the wetness of the lips, the same. Okay? So do not underestimate the love of the old.
Yeah.
Do not say, oh, you're already old.
Old-timer.
No. In fact, it is sweeter, Dr. Brian. I tell you. All right. So then, the last here is the essence. Essence. So what we are saying is, as we write the texture, we also we weave with it the structure. Okay? And then, the last is the essence. And this is now your conclusion, where you bring together your textural description and your structural description. That is the what and the context of the experience. And then the goal is that, so that after reading, your reader will say, now I understand better what it is like for someone to experience that. If you write a paper on bullying, what is it like to be bullied? What are the contexts that precipitate being bullied? And anyone who reads the paper will say, now I understand what it is like for someone to be bullied. And by all means, we will stop it because we know it is not a good experience, right? So this is what phenomenology is. It has a big role to play in education. But I would say, let us use that one rightly. Please give to Grace your name, we have all, I think, your email addresses, and I will, if you like the material, I will send to you. I encourage you also to read the book of Mustakas. And if you want to do a study on transcendental phenomenology, do not hesitate to call us. As long as you call me in the evening and on Sunday, I can respond. Some of you, you call me in the middle of a meeting. Some of you, you call me on Sabbath. You know, we keep the Sabbath. So, but Sunday and evening, or you text me first, or write me an email. We are quite good at that, right? Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arceli, for that very insightful and, bringing phenomenology come to life. I will be distributing papers. Please write your names. Again, let's put our hands together for Dr. Arceli Rosario. Of course, we would like to award the certificate to Dr. Arceli.